Today we're going to go through the next part of our sermon series called King of My Heart. The sermon series' big idea is that we will always be ruled by something or someone, and we must choose to have God be king of our hearts. If you think of a chessboard, all right. If you think of a chessboard, if you pick any other piece than your king to be the king on the board, you're going to have a very, very bad game. If you protect the wrong piece the whole game, it's going to go south very fast, especially if you pick a piece on the wrong side. But that's the kind of thing that we do in life. We pick something in our life that is not the right affection, not the right source, not the right hope, not the right salvation. We find something temporary to fix us, and we get fixed on that instead of God being the true king of our hearts that is lasting and true. Sermon title today is the last of our Dude series. There will be more dudes in the Bible, but this is the last dude. But anyways, the first week was, Dude, where's my donkeys? The second week was, Dude, where's our king? We saw last week that Saul was hidden behind the luggage. He was trying to skirt away from his responsibility. And today is, Dude, where's our salvation? The big idea for today is that God uses who he chooses to bring total victory. And frankly, when you look at this chapter, this is Saul's first and last big success. He does something great here. He steps up. He is the hero. He is the king that everybody wants. He fulfills things just the right way. And we'll see that when you step up and trust God, he will use you in a beautiful way to bring that total victory. To give you a little bit of context again, this takes place about 1050 BC. Israel constantly has gone its own way all throughout Judges and frankly all throughout time. The cyclical nature of people is they start in a good place, on a high place, trusting God. They go their own way, become complacent, forget God, cry out to a higher power. Frankly, then they return to God, and they go back to a good place. And it turns into this big cycle of repeating the same thing after the same thing, of doing whatever is right in your own eyes. In the middle of this phase, when after Samuel has finished his reign as judge, the people cry out for a king, just like all the other nations. They want to have a king like all of their enemies. So God gives them what they want. He equips Saul. Saul, who is this, he's a very handsome man. He's a very attractive man. He's known to be like best-looking man of the year. And, you know, he's got all the notoriety. He's got his life set. He's rich. He's powerful. He's good-looking. He can get all the girls that he wants. He doesn't have to worry about anything, and he's sent on this trivial journey, like this phase, the circle here, the part 1 being the call to adventure. He's going on this ordinary journey of trying to find donkeys that have gone missing. He spends 3 days looking for donkeys, traveling 60 to 80 miles, not finding the donkeys, and it turns from an ordinary venture into something extraordinary. When he meets Samuel, and the call to adventure essentially is this: you're going to become king, Samuel. You're going to go from being this guy who's got it all set and you've got no worries, and now everything turns upside down. And Saul refuses at first. This is strange. This is questionable. But Samuel provides him reassurances. He becomes a mentor. He provides clarity away from doubts. And he's able to cross the threshold from being this ordinary guy into an extraordinary guy when he experiences prophetic signs that Samuel has given him to assure him that this is directly from God. And he goes home. A week later, all of Israel is called together. And they draw lots, or essentially it's like a big gamble that comes, an answer comes from God specifically, and it's narrowed down to his family and eventually to him, and he's hidden behind luggage. And people are trying to figure out where he is. They find him behind the luggage, pull him out. He's a head taller than everyone else. He looks great, even for being a scaredy cat. Honestly, I wouldn't blame him. This would be a lot of pressure to have 500,000 to 1 million people looking at you saying, you're the guy, and then immediately saying, long live the king. That's a lot of pressure. I don't think any of us would be able to do that comfortably. But, this is what is put on him. He is appointed, he is anointed, and publicly proclaimed king. And the Israelites are sent home after that, and Saul is left with some people who like him. A lot of people are like, who's this chump? In the great words of Pastor Scott, it's essentially, who's this chump sucker? It's his favorite word. He's just this guy. He's this kid. He's a pretty boy. And he goes back into default mode. He goes back home and starts farming. He's not taking on the role of a king because he doesn't know what to do. And all the while, there's this ever-looming threat of the next enemy. We've gone through the first half of the hero's journey here. So part 1 and 2 are covered, and we'll see the rest of it today. We see this unification and transformation of character, and then this road home as you see the final product. So in 1 Samuel 11, 1 through 3, it says this. About a month later, King Nahash of Ammon led his army against the Israelite town of Jabesh Gilead. But all the citizens of Jabesh asked for peace. Make a treaty with us, and we will be your servants, they pleaded. All right, says Nahash, but on one condition. Just something light, I'm going to gouge out your right eye, every one of you. And you're going to be a disgrace to all of Israel. Give us 7 days to send messengers all throughout Israel, replied the elders of Jabesh. If no one comes to save us, we will agree to your terms. The story's already starting out a little weird. And it reminds me, naturally, of one of my children's favorite shows. In this episode, they're playing on a seesaw, and the two kids, one of them is brushed off the side, and the dad sits down on the opposite side and says, "This is mine." And all the kids start trying to work together to try to outweigh the dad. And the dad doesn't bother to stop them. He just sits back, relaxes, he even picks up a couple heavy rocks and sets them on himself to increase the weight. But the kids continue going out and finding more and more friends until they have 6 friends all on top, and eventually push the seesaw down to the opposite side. It seems like fruitless help at first in this story, where all these kids cannot possibly outweigh the dad. And this is what happens inside of the beginning of 1 Samuel 11. Nahash, this great warlord, he has conquered much of Israel. He has remained static for some time. There's some context that says that he has gouged out the eyes of many tribes of Israel. And what's happening now after Samuel is done being judge, and now Saul is stepping up, now it's Jabesh Gilead's turn. Now it's the rest of Israel that will be conquered by Ammon. And they're starting with Jabesh Gilead. And they surround this town. And when the leader comes forward and the elders come out and they ask for, give us a little bit of peace. And, we're happy to pay taxes. Here's the deal. You can take out your eye and look like a fool. Sound like a good deal? You're not going to be able to do much of anything after that. There's no uprise after that point. You are totally indebted to this nation past that point. But what happens is the messengers go out and, they ask for 7 days to be saved from the people of Ammon. That doesn't sound like a good idea for the people of Ammon, right? Here's what it looks like. If you've ever played chess, a pawn, the second row, you have like 8 of them. If you push them all the way to the opposite side, what do they become? A queen, a knight, a rook, or a bishop. Anything you want. Most people pick a queen because it can go anywhere on the board. This is what it looks like. It looks like if Ammon was winning this game, they're in the winning position, but they choose to make useless moves over and over again until all the pawns cross the board. It's not a great idea, right? So that's generally what it looks like. It becomes kind of like a fruitless hope. Ammon feels like they have already won. Nahash feels like he has already won. It feels like no matter what the people of Jabesh Gilead do, it's going to be useless. So these messengers spread out. They travel 42 miles. They spend days going to all these places saying, people, help us. This group of people from Ammon are coming to destroy us. They want to take our eyes. The weirdo. Gosh, who wants eyes? But they travel all that way. And the response of all the towns is irregular. They move just from sympathizing, like, oh man, your situation's kind of bad. I don't know if I can help you, to all the people are weeping and crying. They don't do anything except cry because it feels hopeless. The news, though, eventually reaches the right person when it gets all the way down to Saul in Gibeah. Now, Nahash is an interesting character. His name literally means snake. Anybody like snakes here? Generally, when you see a snake, there's never something very, welcoming about it. You're wondering, is the snake going to bite me? Should I be scared of it? Is it poisonous? I'm sure you're pulling out your phone saying, is it poisonous? Are there poisonous snakes in Wisconsin? But all around Israel were these enemies, one of which was Ammon, or the Ammonites. And this is a group of people that used to be related to the people of Israel. Way back when with Abraham, when Abraham and Lot split and went to two different towns. This is family members essentially coming against family members. But Ammon, whose king had oppressed so much of Israel, was now turning his attention to Jabesh Gilead. The people desired this king. All throughout these past two chapters, they were desiring a king for this very reason. They wanted a king like the rest of the nations to fight the king of the rest of the nations. They wanted to fight fire with fire, but they didn't know how to have a king in the first place. Their first reaction was not to say, King, save us. Their first reaction was not turning to God to save them. Instead, they turned to their enemies saying, hey, don't hurt us, please. Give us 7 days. We'll see if we could save ourselves, right? But Nahash is this cruel tyrant who offers peace at the price of shame. Ultimately, he mirrors what Satan offers to everyone. Peace for shame and peace for servitude. Commentator writes this: the price to pay for cheap and false security is this. Satan attacks us, but cannot do anything against us without our agreement. He asks for and requires our surrender. Satan wants us to serve him and will attempt to intimidate us into giving into him. Satan wants our humiliation and to exalt himself over us through humiliating one saint or one Christian. Satan wants to bring reproach on all of God's people. Satan wants to take away our ability to effectively fight against him, and Satan wants to blind us, and if he cannot blind us completely, he will blind us partially. Here's the thing, friends. Did you know that there is a war going on for your soul? It's easy to look at all the wars going on all throughout the world. You look at Africa, it is completely war-torn. You look at the Middle East, it is war-torn. If you look at Russia and Ukraine, it is war-torn. You see war all over the place, and that's one thing on a physical realm. And you see social media battles going all over the place. Your social lives are always at stake of wondering, am I going to be canceled? Am I going to be okay? Who's the next target? You have all kinds of battles going on. You have the political battle of this year going on. There's many different realms of battles and wars going on. But it goes deeper than that. Your soul is at stake. And even when you place your trust in God, there is an enemy that wants to quash you and say, don't talk anymore. Enjoy your personal faith. Don't go on mission. Don't love people. Don't go on this great commission that God has given you. Even if you have all of the equipment, stay where you are, stay comfortable, stay put. The enemy is ever present. My call isn't necessarily to scare you. My call is to show you there's a real enemy, not to over-focus on that enemy, but to know that we are in a battle every day. 1 Samuel 11:4-5 says this: When the messengers came to Gibeah of Saul and told the people about their plight, everyone broke into tears. Saul had been plowing a field with his oxen, and when he returned to town, he asked, "What's the matter? Why is everyone crying?" And they told him about the message from Jabesh. Here's the thing: we have a lot of problems, right? We have all kinds of problems that pop up, and the people of Jabesh Gilead had a big problem. And the thing that we often do is we try to handle it ourselves first. We try to submit ourselves to others or things. And when none of that works, we cry out to God. I got this from the Life's Healing Choices book. In the first chapter, it really tries to push this idea that when we want freedom from any of our hurts or habits or hang-ups, we must first admit that we are not God. If you start, you can't go anywhere past that point. You can recognize that you have a problem, but if you're not moving past just the problem stage and finding another problem to fix that problem, you remain in a stuck state. You remain in bondage. When you recognize that we are weak, when you recognize that our pride cannot save us, we can move from a state of just being in a state of problems and moving towards a state of freedom. So when we're in our problems tend to result in fear, frustration, fatigue, and failure, which is what you see with the people of Jabesh Gilead. They are afraid. They're frustrated because they don't know what to do. They're tired because they've traveled for many miles trying to find somebody to save them, but all they get is tears. And there's a sense of failure when they get to this final town. And the king who's there is out farming. And it's easy to think, this is a passive king. This is just, again, some kid who's not really ready to be king. He's back out farming. He's got 2 oxen with him. He comes in after a hard day, and he's like, "Hey, guys, what's going on? Why are you crying?" Saul's not acting kingly because, frankly, Israel's never had a king. Particularly a king like all the nations, let alone a king like Samuel wrote about before sending the Israelites home. Saul returns to default mode, which is natural. You expect, if you're given this great responsibility, but you have no next steps, and you have no guidelines before that, you have no role models before that, what do? Saul's been on this big adventure. He goes from being, again, just this pretty boy, to suddenly the whole nation, the weight of the whole nation is on him. It's big. News doesn't reach Saul because they don't regard Saul as a king just yet, just a figurehead. He's just a guy who received a big day in the sun. He looks great right now, but frankly, a leader is not a leader until they need to lead. 1 Samuel 11:6-9 says this: Then the Spirit of God came powerfully upon Saul, and he became very angry. He took 2 oxen and cut them into pieces and sent the messengers to carry them throughout Israel with this message: This is what will happen to the oxen of anyone who refuses to follow Saul and Samuel into battle. Sounds like a great time, right? You got to come. Don't want my oxen destroyed. And the Lord made the people afraid of Saul's anger, and all of them came out together as one. When Saul mobilized them at Bezek, he found that there were 300,000 men from Israel and 30,000 men from Judah. So Saul sent messengers back to Jabesh Gilead to say, "We will rescue you by noontime tomorrow." There was a great joy throughout the town when that message arrived. I think you're probably getting the idea that I'm a big fan of maps, but you'll see the green side on the right side is Ammon. Big country right there. And the blue line that is going directly north from Ammon goes to the first town right below all the descriptors. Jabesh Gilead. That's the first town they hit. That's the first town along the way. And, right before the Jordan River, which would normally be a big separation away from one side or the other. Raging, nasty river. But they get to Jabesh Gilead, they surround it, and then they go down throughout all the land, that big red line going all the way down to the very bottom is where they meet Saul at Gibeah. And they only have a week to gather all these people. I'm sure they spent the first 2 days going out, just passing this message along fruitlessly, doing exactly what the people of Ammon expected, doing exactly what they expected in the sense that, it seems like fruitless help. Nobody's going to help you. Everybody's afraid of us. Why does it matter if you go here or there? But eventually they reach Gibeah. And Saul is filled with this righteous anger. He has the Holy Spirit rush upon him. And it's a gritty scene where he cuts up these 2 oxen, these huge animals. And he gives it to the messengers to send to all the people, every which way, of Israel. It's kind of a gross scene, and it draws us back to Judges 19, which is an even more difficult scene to see. It's a dark time inside of Israel's history when you see that particular scene. But ultimately, it's a rally cry for the Israelites, as well as serves as the end of Saul's default mode. And the people are afraid of this. I mean, if you picture going out to your mailbox and you see a bloodied up piece of cow, what are you going to do? Not that. I went the wrong way. Okay. So if you saw this bloodied up piece of cow, it would be revolting. It would be strange. You wouldn't want to see that. But the Israelites see this, and historically, the Israelites fail to gather. In multiple times throughout Judges, they fail to gather. But instead of failing to gather, all gather. All 300,000 men gather. 30,000 people from Judah gather, all at the very top part before you cross the Jordan River again at Bezek. 330,000 people gather. It's hard enough to gather people for a game night, right? But these people gather together. They are ready to go into battle. They are ready for strategic warfare at that. They are split into 3 companies of people, as we'll see in this next bit. In 1 Samuel 11:10 through 11, it says, "The men of Jabesh then told their enemies, 'Tomorrow we will come out to you, and you can do to us whatever you wish.' But before dawn the next morning, Saul arrived, having divided his army into 3 detachments. He launched a surprise attack against the Ammonites and slaughtered them the whole morning. The remnant of their army was so badly scattered that no 2 men of them were left together." It's total defeat. It's total victory. When I think of this scene, I think of, I've played soccer for many years. I've loved watching baseball, and I loved just engaging in many different sports. In many competitive games that I've played, video game-wise, there's always this rule. It's called many different things. It's called a mercy rule, a slaughter rule, or getting skunked. Are you familiar with that? If you get to that point, you know that you've lost. This total victory, though, goes well and above beyond that place. It is complete decimation. You see, what happens at first is there is psychological warfare. There's a deception that's built from the Jabeshites saying to the Ammonites, "Listen, we're ready to surrender to you. You can have our eyes, and you can have us too." They're ready to be at their mercy. So the Ammonites are ready to have a party at the same time. They sleep comfortably. They're ready to go in and wipe out this nation. So they're comfortable, and then a miraculous gathering completely decimates the Ammonites. This perfect military movement completely crushes the Ammonites, saving Israel from the oppression and further humiliation of themselves. Consider this. When Satan makes an offer and we accepted it, it humiliates the Christian and the Christian community to the watching world. We strive to win ground constantly in the spiritual battle we face every day. The kind of victory we have in Jesus when we trust in him, we win ground and completely crush Satan when we trust in Jesus. Even when the attacks are immense or our problems are daunting, Jesus is still greater, and we have a victory that is absolute. When we recognize that we are not God, and when we stop trying to play the role of God, we could see that God's victory is absolute and complete, and we could be a part of that. You see, Saul invites all of these people of Israel to be a part of an absolute victory when he's trusting God and totally reliant on him. He's inviting them into God's great plan for a great kingdom. And this enemy that comes in is completely wiped out, no matter how daunting they were in the first place. 1 Samuel 11:12-15 says this. And then the people exclaimed to Samuel, "Now where are those men who said, 'Why should Saul rule over us?' Bring them here and we will kill them." But Saul replied, "No one will be executed today, for today the Lord has rescued Israel." Then Samuel said to the people, "Come, let us all go to Gilgal to renew the kingdom." So they all went to Gilgal, and in a solemn ceremony before the Lord, they made Saul king. Then they offered peace offerings to the Lord, and Saul and all the Israelites were filled with joy. Friends, unity is key here. The people gather, and those that were originally opposed to Saul, those who were like, who's this chump sucker? Who's this guy? Who's this, this kid that, was hiding behind the baggage? What's he going to do? Who's this, who's this punk? He's nothing. The people are now pointing at all those people who were detracting away from Saul and saying, "Where are you? You need to die." It's easy to find a common enemy. The common enemy before was Saul, because he was just some guy. He's not proven himself. Any political leader, any kind of teacher has to prove themselves. Frankly, any kind of pastor has to prove themselves that they can lead well and that they can guide people well and that they are consistent and that they love their people and that they are willing to sacrifice for their people. Any kind of leader does not need to lead until they actually have to lead. And this is Saul's day in the sun. He leads well. He trusts God well. And the people now have a new common enemy. They pointed all the people who detracted before and said, "You need to die. You're the problem." This is where division begins, though. And Saul makes a wise move, and he speaks up as leader, offering mercy. He defines himself as a good leader, as a humble leader, as a merciful leader, as a leader that loves his people. And frankly, points to the Lord and says that he's the one who gave victory. It's not just me, it's God who gives us this total victory. And Samuel calls for a renewal of the kingdom. He recognizes that people were not all on board. They were not on Saul's joy bus. They weren't there. But now they're all going back to Gilgal to inaugurate Saul as the king. Happiness and civility ultimately are found in this kind of unity, friends. This was an outward win for Israel. They conquered this great enemy, and it was an inward win for Saul, because you see a reliance upon God and humility before God. And this changes everything when you have the right focus. We see that Jesus ultimately is an example of... Jesus has a similar kind of inauguration. Saul, he was inaugurated, he was anointed and appointed to be king, and he was given the jurisdiction to be king over all of the people. He was the first king. But you'll see in a couple chapters later, he doesn't get it. He goes all kinds of the wrong way. He had, again, his day in the sun in chapter 11. And then for the next 40 years, he goes really south really fast. Because it all becomes about him. But Jesus, the last and the true and the forever king, is anointed and appointed like this. In Luke 4:16-21, it says, "He went to Nazareth where he had been brought up, and on the Sabbath day he went into the synagogue, as was his custom. He stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. Unrolling it, he found the place where it was written, 'The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to proclaim the good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor.' Then he rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. all of the eyes of the synagogue were fastened on him. He began by saying to them, "Today, this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." This is what happens with Jesus. Jesus rises up as king. He is given the role that he's supposed to do. He spends the first 30 years fulfilling the law perfectly, following what he is supposed to do in just the right way. He is anointed by the Father at his baptism. He came to seek and to save the lost, those who know that they needed help. He came to serve, to be a good leader. Jesus came to proclaim that total victory, and Jesus consistently and faithfully serves the true King that saves. This time Ignite can come up. The big idea, friends, is that God uses who he chooses to bring total victory. The bottom line is that we fight a battle every day and have a war that goes on for our souls. We have to start by admitting that we are not God and that we cannot do it by ourselves and that we are weak and we must humbly come before God. Those are hard things to admit. They're never easy to process on our own. But when we get to the place where we know we need something more than ourselves, the problems that we have, we'll see, are far smaller than God, and that we could trust in the kingship of Jesus that lasts forever. That is consistently faithful and true, and we can learn from Saul's example. When he was led by the Spirit and claimed total victory, Jesus gives us victory over our problems and will lead us to give victory to those in our other areas of influence. Because, frankly, you can be saved. You can be in a great place. You can be locked in and going to heaven to be with God forever. But that's not the end of the story. We are called to go out and love others well. We are called to go out and share this light and free captives from the bondage that they are in. We need spiritual leaders today who care about the people around them and their problems, who are willing to take action, and who are gifted at bringing people together. There's no greater privilege than this, to be used by God to serve other people. My challenge for you this week is to remember the equipment that you have for battle. Saul just had the Spirit rush over him. But if you trust in Jesus, the Spirit doesn't just rush over you, it lives in you. You are given the perfect equipment to fight any battle, no matter how great of an attack Satan goes against you. You are given a helmet of salvation to remember that you are saved. You are secure. A breastplate of righteousness to remember that you stand on another side. You know what is right and you know what is wrong. You are given a belt of truth to have the right kind of discernment, a sword of the Spirit. The attack comes not from you, but from the Holy Spirit. And it is the perfect counter-attack. You're given a shield of faith, knowing that God is consistent and true, and boots of peace, to know that you stand firm on solid ground. You will not waver when you trust God. C.S. Lewis writes this: "Friends, remember this, there are two equal and opposite errors into which our race can fall about devils. One is to disbelieve in their existence, and the other is to believe and to feel an excessive and unhealthy interest in them. They themselves are equally pleased by both errors, and hail a materialist or a magician with the same delight." This ultimately to say is, we have a great enemy, but the enemy is so small in comparison to our great God. And God will use who he chooses to bring total victory. If you'll stand and join us for our last song. I'll be up here for prayer. Pastor Scott is in the back.